Hello, everybody. It has been a while. I hope you guys are well and safe during this time. I know there's a lot going on, and I wanted to bring you a channeled message from the Arcturian Council and remind you of the utmost importance, especially this month and until the end of the year, to maintain a state of non-dual awareness and non-attachment. We're going to explore the matrices that are intertwined with the current political landscape in the States. And I will preface this with just an acknowledgement on a couple notes. One, this is not by any means intended to say, don't vote or do vote. It is not like that at all. This is in regards to like the current circumstances and looking beyond what is immediately visible. The importance of expressing the world you want to see and voting for the things that you wish to, shape the world into. That is like fundamentally across the board important, of course. I also want to acknowledge the fact that I am in Canada, and as such, naturally, I have a little bit more objectivity. So I just want to acknowledge those who are in the States. Of course, the stakes are a little bit more high, is what I'm trying to say. So this goes without saying. So we are looking at the final moments of our collective transition beyond the 3D matrix, on the 3D reality. So if we imagine, and bear with me here, let's say, okay, this is our planet, this is the 3, and the collective consciousness is in this circle, right? The way the interference and the restrictions, I guess, is what I'm trying to express. The way the restrictions from, the shadow side of things, I'm going to just choose my words a little bit carefully because I don't want to end up getting banned. The way the interferences and the agendas are shaping our 3D matrix is basically like, you imagine a layer in Photoshop. You have the object that you're editing, and then on top of it, you have another layer. And it's like two parallels, but one slightly changed the organic form underneath. So that's the same for the world. Obviously, on like, say, this end of the spectrum, these are like the off-gridders, people who are just like, completely unaffected by society and like the things, the constructs that we have in our modern world. So they're somewhat free. And then we're going to do the second layer. So this is like the otherworldly, darker matrix that's like over top. And this is what most people would probably consider the simulation. That doesn't mean that we're not real and that we're just like literally computers like plugged into a, socket somewhere. It just means that our organic view of the world and the way we would naturally interpret things if it was like untainted is fundamentally shifted because of the agendas, because of the beliefs that have been passed down that basically just filter out the reality we perceive or don't. So this is like the lower density, darker agenda. And now, naturally, what we're doing is, say we're in the middle, right? And all of us have been like working very hard at our ascension, at holding the, staying centered, staying grounded, and trying to shift the collective out of this interference because we know that the lower density interference can only reach up as high as their frequency can hold. Once you move past that level of vibration into a higher density, which is why we can't see the higher dimensions, like with our eyes, And that's why most people who are still sleeping don't necessarily perceive the possibility of it being true that there are, because it just exists beyond their perception. So naturally, as we shift towards the 5D, we are literally and figuratively becoming untouchable. They literally have no access to us once we get out of that. So right now, obviously, we're kind of like at the peak, the climax of the movie, where there's so much going on. We know what's happening, but it's still like really, even like all the way up here in Canada, we're very unaffected by what's going on, but like the energy we can feel 100%. So we try to embody this and move out of it. I want you guys to imagine it's not necessarily about pushing towards this side of the 3D matrix that is unaffected. Like that's one option, of course, but that's not very realistic because we're not all just going to go off grid out of the blue. It works is by us being here and us on a daily basis returning to the void, the 0 point degree field of creation, source, the realms where you go if you have a near-death experience. I'm not saying in a sense where it's going to put you in any danger, but just that void where nothing exists and everything exists, like all possibilities exist, because in that quantum field we know there are infinite possibilities and infinite directions and infinite choices instead of the ones presented to us only in our immediate reality. For example, again, this has nothing to do with the actual candidates. I'm completely, I wouldn't say neutral. I think they're all shitty choices, to be truthful, but like, to be truthful, it's not about that. They're giving us two options and you can vote one, red or blue, right? So we just take it for face value, like, oh, okay, so I get to pick. And it's kind of like a illusion around freedom of choice, because there is no choice, because no matter what, if you're in that level of the political landscape, there are agendas. And even if you go with the most purest intentions and purest heart, like just completely naive, you want to change the world, make it a better place, maybe you get elected, that's great. Then you're going to get that visit in the night, from like the Men in Black or whatever it is that happens, and you're going to get the talk. And that's when like the dark agenda gets pushed on you, blackmail and like whatever else. So what I'm trying to say is, no matter what we do, we're going to like lose, more or less. There's no right or wrong choice. Both choices are just like, we need to just completely go through them. So what we need to do is remember and teach and inspire and remind others around us that we can, as often as possible, and should go back, skyrocketing out, straight into the nothingness, into the void. Okay, so this is like source. And obviously you have the different veils and the realms. And by doing that, by centering yourself, and it's funny because the way to illustrate it is up, because source, but really it's just like in, so like the deepest inside possible. I always thought that was a metaphor, and I always kind of rolled my eyes at that too, and they're like, oh, just go night, everything is inside. I'm like, ugh, yeah, boring, like what's next? But then I realized what they're talking about. Connecting with like the pulses you feel in your body, and this is why people who are practicing like Chinese medicine or like acupuncture, those things, they can literally feel you have more pulses beyond just your heart, right? Like your liver has a pulse, your perineum has a pulse, like all of these different things, and connecting with that like subtlest heartbeat going inside your bones. Feel yourself going back to like or just energy, like molecule, like I'm gonna butcher the words because I'm just not I don't have a science background, but like the molecules, atoms, particles, whatever, just like into like little pixels. That's what you want to be imagining yourself. And that is the source of creation. That is where love is. And right now, I know the outlook doesn't look too great. And I know there's going to be a lot of backlash too, because, well, I mean, there's a major delay, and that obviously indicates that something's up. So looking beyond that, though, knowing that that will pass, and it'll pass faster and faster, the more we can kind of just like quantum leap, because then once we go into here, we have a choice of where do we even want to go. You can access everything from source. So whether you're like, hopping out to 5D or you're going to go, hang out with your ET friends, or you're just going to come back and like come out of this whole matrix. You just want to avoid it altogether. And like, by all means, be active and speak up and, stand up for what's right and stand up for those who need protection, especially the minority communities and all of the people that have been at such a disadvantage. But don't get played into the trap, is what I'm saying. We can still be active and activists and build a better tomorrow without buying into the consciousness grid, because it's all just a grid of this is reality, and it's not. It's just all that we are seeing right now. So I hope that I hope that kind of explains it. What else? Another thing I would like to invite you guys to practice, and I don't really have an explanation why. It's just kind of coming to the forefront. It's just being pushed out to share. Is two practices, and one of them being practicing the art of invisibility. I don't know if you guys have had this experience. If you've ever been like, I don't know, whether you're trying to like into like a concert, or if you're trying to like get out of a situation where you're at like an awkward party and you just want to go home. There's the really like sneaky way where you're like kind of paranoid and like you are that much more obvious because you're like constantly like looking around. Or if you're just like completely in your element, like literally just bodying invisibility, like you literally like go unnoticed. And when things start getting wild, especially for those in the States, you can be untouchable by becoming a safe person. And again, this is all about your vibration and, choosing a select few strategic partnerships, I guess, people that you can trust, whether they're people that you have known for a long time or people that you have known for a long time at all, but you like feel this resonant match that they are soul family, they can be trusted, and everything in your body says yes, like that is a person. It's not about history and how like, going all the way back. It's about like, what is my truth telling me? Not that we have 15 years of friendship under our belt, because we know that that can change very fast when they're high. So really coming up with a few strategic alliances, having that safety net of just embodying safety and vibrating at the level of safety. When there is this much chaos, like attracts like, and it just goes right back to like the universal laws, law of attraction, what you are attracting. If you're operating in a state of shakiness, like paranoia, like fight or flight, and I know it's not easy, but the point will help with this, because this is where love is. And this is where our future currency will be. Like our future currency will not be, it might be digital for a bit, it'll go cashless for a bit, but eventually all roads are leading to the currency of love and focus attention. And, there might be a few mediums to serve as stepping stones, but until we get there, you can access that safety and that feeling of love and automatically up your frequency so that you're not even attracting scary people, scary circumstances, because it's just not a resonant match for your field, despite what is happening right outside your door. It's a weird kind of like paranormal, whatever you want to call it, phenomena, but it just, going back to invisibility is going to be key. I think that's that. And I would like to share one thing. I'll write it up and put it in the comments for you guys too. Clearing statements are a really great way. Shit. Sorry. Clearing statements are a really great way of catching yourself anytime you're running into those paradigms, those programs, those thought forms, and any of the consciousness traps where your mind is just thinking, overthinking, and still going in that duality: is it bad, is it good, is it bad, is it good, bad? And like, in order to rewrite our neural pathways, and until you have time to actually like sit down and do the proper cleaning and soul work, a good band-aid is the clearing statements, because they automatically just deactivate those neural pathways that have been formed by the thoughts you have been thinking are not of your actual best interest, but instead just buying into the fear agenda. And it just like, it's like if I were to erase, I still need to get a cloth at the end of the day and like wipe it down, but I could do it with my hand if I wanted to. Does that make sense? I hope. So I'll write it up for you guys to keep, but you can just keep it on like your phone, and you can adjust it obviously for what feels right. For some reason, I know these are going to sound a little bit strange. For whatever reason, these specific words are just like super potent, and I'll let you hear. So anywhere and everywhere, I've bought and sold the idea that, I don't know, it's red versus blue, whatever the thing is, that XYZ, I destroy and uncreate all of that times the GODzillion, right, wrong, good, bad, pod, POC, all nine, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And this is something that was taught at Access Consciousness. The second option is anywhere and everywhere I've bought and sold the idea that blank, I uncreate, delete, and destroy across all times, dimensions, space, and realities. And that one makes a little bit more sense. Use them, keep them, and just be aware of any loops. Like, I've had a lot of confusion loops and just not knowing what I want to do next. There's a lot of interference going, and I don't want to worry you guys, because we're sovereign beings at the end of the day. So it's up to us to like take action and use our free will. However, if you're going in spirals, there's probably a reason beyond just, self-sabotage or whatever. So be conscious of that. And it's good to just like, ask your body, ask the truth question. Sorry, I'm getting guidance as we're closing here. Ask your body. Open-ended questions is a great way to solve problems, because instead of saying a yes/no question, when you ask yourself an open-ended question, it actually keeps, I think it's the neocortex part of your brain running in the background. So it's kind of on autopilot trying to solve the problem. So if you're like, hey, body, what would it feel like for us to find our dream home? I don't know, like something that you're trying to figure out. If you have that kind of like, you're not going to know what it is, but your mind will keep processing it, because obviously our brains are just like those association machines, and it literally drives us crazy to not have the to the things that we want to know. So anytime you find yourself looping, first of all, try to identify it. Second of all, clearing statements so you have time to sit down and do the deep work. And if you need healing, or if you feel like you have some interference, I've pulled, I would say, over a dozen different like seals, alien parasites, alien, what are they called? Like they're like astral receivers, and you can only see them in your third eye. But I've had chronic migraines for, God, like I think since 2016, so a good 4 or 5 years. And part of it was due to PTSD, and like that's, that I think that is true. However, some of it just did not go away after. And once I actually did the work of like trying to figure out what the hell was going on with me, I realized that it was interference and like seals. So research zeta seals, Jehovian seals too. That's an important one because a lot of times those ones are going to start with like a very specific part of your body, wherever it's implanted, kind of just degenerating a little bit, like whether you just get a sudden problem, like, I don't know, in your back. And they're actually meant to like fully open at some point in time and keep you from ascending. So just just a, just a perspective. I hope you guys are safe and well wherever you are in the world. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.